Layer addressing and the three types of addresses, MAC, IP, and port addresses, are critical components of network communication. For example, consider the process of accessing a web page. When you access a web page, several types of addresses are used at different layers of the network model. At the data link layer, we have the MAC address. Moving up to the network layer, the critical component is the IP address. Let's delve into requesting a web page. At the application layer, you open your web browser and enter the URL, such as http://www.example.com. The browser then prepares an HTTP request. Moving on to the transport layer and focusing on the port address. The HTTP request is assigned a source port number by your computer, for instance, 49152, and a destination port number, which is 80 for HTTP, for the web server. To illustrate, the source port is 49152 and the destination port is 80. At the network layer, we encounter the IP address. Your computer uses its own IP address as the source IP, for example, and the IP address of the web server, let's say, as the destination IP. These addresses help in routing the data packets from the source to the destination efficiently across the network. At the data link layer, the request is framed with your computer's MAC address, such as SO as the source MAC address, and the MAC address of the router, for example, as the destination MAC address. Once the router receives the frame, it reads the destination IP address and forwards the packet to the next hop in the path to the web server. As it passes through different network segments, the MAC addresses are changed accordingly. The web server receives the HTTP request, processes it, and sends back the HTTP response. The process involves similar addressing mechanisms, but in reverse. The source port is now 80, and the destination port becomes 49152. The IP address is switched too, with the source IP being 93.184.216.34, and the destination IP being 192.168.1.2. As for the MAC addresses, the source MAC is now that of the router near the web server, and the destination MAC changes back to your router's MAC address, and finally, your computer's MAC address. Let's summarize the three types of addresses used in network communication. First, the MAC address, or Media Access Control Address, is at the data link layer. An example would be, its purpose is to serve as a unique identifier for network interfaces, used for communication within a local network segment. Next, the IP address, or Internet Protocol Address, operates at the network layer. An example here could be for IPv4 or for IPv6. Its role is to identify devices on a network and provide a way to route packets between different networks. Lastly, the port address, which is at the transport layer. Examples include for HTTP, for HTTPS, and for SSH. Its purpose is to identify specific processes or services on a device, allowing for directed communication to and from particular applications. These addressing mechanisms work together to ensure data is correctly routed from the source to the destination across various layers of the network model.